Chances are, if you listen to this podcast, you're an NBA fan. Chances also are, if you have a pulse, you're a music fan. We here at the Upshot love both immensely. And you don't have to search too far to find the connections between the two, which begs the obvious question: what band artists would you compare to your favorite teams of all time? That's why we're here today. Let's dive in. Let's do it.
This is the Upshot Podcast. We're about to break down the biggest moments in the NBA.
Long three! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining!
And why they matter now. This is the Upshot Podcast.
All right, welcome to another Upshot Podcast. I'm here today with Nick Atkins, Marshall Robertson, and Joe Baltz. How you guys doing?
Hey-o. Yes, sir.
So today we're going to be talking about musicians and athletes, and we just thought this was fun because we all sort of have this vibe of what we think about certain sports teams, and they give you a feeling of who they are and what they stand for, and we also sort of have this vibe with certain bands. And musicians and athletes share everything from the whole anxiety of getting up and actually putting on a performance to the rigorous training schedules that you have to go through to actually be good at it. So you don't get good at a jump shot without practice. You don't get good at playing a scale without a lot of practice. There's a lot of practice that goes into both. And really, every sporting event in the world has music, and it's a big part. The two tie in together very, very tightly, from marching bands to PA systems to top hits. My favorite, jock jams.
Jock jams.
It's just a little too good. And then you got like I said, the Super Bowl halftime show. We have all these iconic moments of music being a big deal, and from a very early age, I think all of us were introduced to this dynamic between, geeky musicians, cool jocks, and, that's really interesting because that's sort of a contrast, but the two really have a lot in common. So, we get into this. Both of these things require a lot of skill. Both require a lot of practice. And both require, fan base, and both have these things. Both are very entertaining, and it's things that people get really passionate about. What we want to talk about today is sort of how we get into basketball. And with basketball, what are these teams comparative to in terms of bands? And, this is one of those things that when you first turn on this particular podcast, you'll be like, what the hell are they talking about? But I have a very good feeling
That's exactly what we want.
But when I have a very good feeling that once we dive into this is going to start making a lot of sense, and you'll see some very big agreements here. So basketball, in terms of, kind of how it's laid down in the last few years, especially, we've had a lot of comparisons with hip-hop music, culture. That's been a big part of what we have. Jay-Z, Drake, huge influences on the NBA.
Oh, Drake. Drake.
And I feel like I could do a whole pod on Drake and how much
we might have to. We might have to
Nick
do one.
Absolutely is a huge fan of Drake.
I love his music and I love his attitude.
So,
do you love his courtside seat in Toronto?
Everything about him. Love that he's a team ambassador or whatever bullshit title they give.
The purpose of this conversation, though, we want to extend beyond the confines of hip-hop to include bands and artists of all genres and compare their attributes and makeup to some of the best NBA teams over the last 35 years. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to break in and we're going to talk about some of our favorite teams of all times and how they compare to some of our favorite bands of all times, and how sort of the personalities of the bands and the teams compare. So, let's dig into this.
Grab a drink, sit down, hold a loved one, and let's have some
This is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one.
Let's dig into it. So the first band that really, comes to mind, or the first, team that comes to mind, is probably one of my favorite teams of all time, which is the 90s Bulls.
That's everyone's favorite team, right? Isn't it?
It's where I fell in love with basketball.
Yeah.
And so, I really get into my feelings about them, and I think that's the first thing that I want to know what you guys feel like. To me, it is a lot of hard work, winning at all costs, but sort of the pinnacle of, there's not much else to compare it to. And even when you do, you're still coming back to compare to this particular thing. And so 90s Bulls, how do they make you feel?
I got to tell you, I'll lead right off. I'm a classic rock guy. I'm an old, hard rock guy. So to me, the 90s Bulls, they are Led Zeppelin.
I was going to say, if you say Skinner, I'm going to kill you.
I was going to go Boston, but no, that's kind of weird because it's Chicago. I should have Why didn't I go Chicago? God, that seems so easy. We need to stop this pod. We're going to go back. I need to go Chicago. No, seriously, Led Zeppelin, for me, number one, I mean, I'm a huge Zeppelin fan. Zeppelin is the, albeit, number one band of all time. And to me, they're the greatest collection of talent from a band standpoint there ever was. Mm-hmm. You got the lead singer, you got Robert Plant. Mm-hmm. That guy gets everyone off in the room. If you've ever seen Almost Famous, you know it.
Is Plant Jordan? Plant Jordan?
Plant is Jordan. He's got. Although I really struggled with this.
Yeah,
I struggled with this so hard because I feel like Jordan should be Jimmy Page. I mean, Jimmy Page was the rev of that engine. He really was. So I had a hard time with that. Who's Jordan? Who's Pippen between Page and Plant? You got John Paul Jones. You got John Bonham.
I know who Bonham is.
Who is it?
It's Rodman. Come on.
Oh, so you're going that iteration.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, so not Steve Kerr or John Paxson.
Yeah, I don't think Steve Kerr and Bonham would have had a lot to talk about, but I think Rodman, they probably could have got down.
No, absolutely. But to me, like, it's just so easy. Just like I said, I'm a hard rock fan. Led Zeppelin to me is the greatest there ever was. And to me, the 90s Bulls are the greatest there ever was. That's an easy one for me.
Same here. Joe, real quick, essence-wise, when you think of this team, first thing that comes to your mind, 90s Bulls, what comes to mind?
Well, I think the biggest thing with the Bulls is, like the evolution of Jordan. I think that for me, when Jordan won his first 3 titles, I hated Jordan. And this is just a personal Joe Balt's opinion, but I hated him. I didn't like him. I didn't root for the Bulls. I was an antagonist
I didn't
about
know
the
any
Bulls.
of this, and I didn't ask you to leave.
And yeah, absolutely. But, he leaves the game after winning the 3rd straight title. And when he comes back, like, basketball needed him. I wanted to root for him. I wanted that story, and I became a huge Jordan fan.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the world did that. And so, I think not that there wasn't a ton of people rooting for the Bulls early, but I think that comeback, and then I think a small piece of that too is Rodman coming in with the Bulls on that second stretch.
Nasty.
I just watched that Rodman 30 for 30.
Yeah.
I still haven't watched it. I got to get on that.
Let me tell you, guys, his story is unbelievable.
Sure.
It truly is. And my favorite part about the Rodman story is how he fits in with Pippen and Jordan and that accountability with those guys. And you really see Pippen and Jordan are coaches in the, Phil Jackson gets all this credit for being the Zen, and maybe he is. Maybe he's the reason that they were great leaders. But when I think of that team, it's hard to root against them.
Kind of like Lennon McCartney. Yeah. Oh, my gosh, did I just give it away?
But what's funny to me, I want to jump on that real quick because Joe hit the nail on the head. Do you guys remember the story about the fact that all 4 of Zeppelin's first 4 albums were panned by critics?
Sure.
I mean, they absolutely hated them. So you felt the same way.
Yeah,
all the critics felt.
When I listened to their albums, that's exactly how I felt. And then later,
there it is.
Doesn't make your pick any less stupid. We're going to go with the Bulls being the Beatles. Now, look, it's not as clean as I can't do Lennon McCartney with Jordan.
Yeah,
Pippen.
which one's which?
Well, maybe. How about this? I just thought about this because Joe clued me in on this when I was watching Joe. How about Lennon McCartney, Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan? How about that?
I have to give you a different parallel on this because I go more towards the Beatles too, and it's not so much about the makeup of Lennon McCartney.
I'm stretching.
And people on the Bulls. I think that what I always sticks
Tony
out to me.
Kukoc. I'm just kidding.
What sticks out to me about the Bulls is watching them rise to the occasion.
Yes.
Having really good teams come at them and then figuring out a way to win. Even when they got beat, you look at with Isaiah and how Jordan reacted to that. And this is where you get into we're going to get into a whole damn thing, me and Nick, on this one. But this is where I get into Beatles and Beach Boys.
Don't say it.
And
he went there.
And there was a brief period of competition where I think that you had Lennon and McCartney who just realized they were the best in the world and maybe started to, bickering starts to happen because the challenge is gone. But then you have Brian Wilson start to step it up with the Beach Boys. And listen, it's Brian Wilson. It's not the Beach Boys. And then it's the same thing with the Bulls.
There's a hot take right there.
You have all of these really great teams coming in and pushing them to actually be better than they were.
Yeah.
And so that's where I get it with the Beatles too, is I think there was a lot of really good artists that pushed the Beatles to be the best.
Fact of the matter is, it's a little bit more subjective, right? Because I know you're a giant Zeppelin fan.
Yeah,
I'm a giant Beatles fan. I get it. It's really
I'm not mad at a Beatles choice.
I think where we can all agree on is like we're all 20s, 30s, okay? But people older than us and even people younger than us, they set that benchmark still at the Jordan Bulls. It's just the greatest of all time.
I'm guessing no one out there chose Smash Mouth.
Exactly. No.
As their option.
Doesn't
for
work.
Bulls.
Doesn't work. I'm fair with that. I'm good. I love Zeppelin. I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
Onward.
So let's go on. Let's how about we're talking 80s Lakers, Showtime Lakers. What do you guys? Number one, when you think about that team, what do you think about?
Joe, what do you got, dude?
Man, what made the Lakers Showtime was this new style, this new brand, of basketball where they're running up and down the court. They seem unstoppable. They've got guys scoring that are the third and four options, like they're the superstar of another team.
Yep.
I think you got bigs running the floor, but more importantly, you got Magic Johnson like a big running this show.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's orchestrating. He can play 1 through 5.
Yep.
And it's never been seen in the NBA. You never have a guy that can play inside and out, and they're changing the NBA with that.
Yeah, maybe the first iteration of point forward. I mean,
Absolutely.
honestly, he could do anything. I'm thinking jazz, right? I'm thinking up and down the court. I'm thinking this.
What do you got?
I was between two, but I'm going to go with Prince.
Ooh.
Prince,
Interesting.
Beat, just the beat,
That's a good
just
one.
going. I'm thinking, but my second pick was Stevie Wonder. Just dun dun dun
man,
dun
that's
dun,
good too.
dun, 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 and I'm thinking of Magic running up and down the court, throwing it behind his back. What do you got?
I got to tell you, for me, it was Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
Showtime Lakers during the 80s, putting out hit after hit after hit.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat Michael Jackson during that time, but I got to tell you, Prince and Stevie Wonder, both really
It's
good
definitely
too.
nothing James Taylor-esque. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, I'm
Love
not
James
feeling that.
Taylor, but we're upbeat. We're moving.
Agreed,
We're
agreed.
moving. We're moving.
On to
Yes.
the next one. Let's get into somebody we kind of talked about already that pushed the Bulls, and that's the late 80s, early 90s Pistons, the Bad Boys.
Yeah, the bad boys are all about like changing that dynamic of the NBA. They were the Cinderella story because for 2 straight years they thought we should be NBA champions and they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't win it.
Yep.
And they were finding the X factor and they found it real quick. They found out if they were the toughest and they were the baddest and they were close too. That was a tight knit group. That was closest thing to a family I've seen as a team. And so they established that. And all of a sudden, they're back-to-back champions.
Back-to-back titles.
Yeah.
Well, and so from a band perspective, where do you go?
For me, it's got to be Kanye, right?
Interesting.
I'm just thinking of somebody who pushes all of my buttons
Yeah,
I
on
love that.
every freaking level. And that's Kanye. But, he's so good, right? Like, it's just hit after hit after hit. He's so good. It's got to be Kanye for me.
I actually picked Kanye on this one too. The other one that I
nice.
thought of, but it's a little bit of a stretch because they actually did end up winning. But it's a band that I really love to talk about because I have vacillated on them my entire life. Is AC/DC. Because AC/DC, hard, coming at you, but really a fair criticism to be like, does every AC/DC song sound exactly the same? Is this one trick pony-ish? Is this just, we're coming at you, this is what we got? And then, oh, by the way, Larry Bird punches back. Michael Jordan punches back. And we may actually have to play some hoops here.
Oh, that's good.
However,
That's
I went
good.
with Kanye because of just the straight attitude, and they did win.
I
They
like
were winners.
AC/DC, though. That's good.
Well, I go a different direction. I go Metallica, and it's the same reason. That I
Another
think it's
good one.
I think it's the same reason as you guys pick Kanye. It's because I think at some point in their career there was talent, and they were doing so Kanye's doing beats for other big people, right?
Yeah.
Metallica has their own sound, but it's very niche. It's a very niche sound. It's fast. It's hard. Yet it's metal, right? And at some point, they have to say, if we're going to transcend to the next level, if we're going to take it to the next place, we've got this bad boy image to us. It's hard, but if we're gonna get there, we've got to say we're gonna push the line, and we don't care what people say. And I think that both Kanye and Metallica both sort of fit in it. There was
So true.
Metallica, they're doing this one style of thing, and then all of a sudden you got the Black Album, which is a complete departure from what they did. And Kanye as well. Every single time Kanye comes out with something, Kanye is pushing buttons.
That's right.
But for a very specific purpose to hit that next level. And so I think that's big.
And it's easy too, because how many times over and over and over has Kanye said, "I owe everything to Bill Laimbeer"?
That's true. All right, so let's talk about another one. Mid-90s Rockets, and Joe, what do you think about when you think of the mid-90s Rockets?
Well, what's fun about the Rockets that I don't know. Hopefully, y'all are drawing a parallel here, but this is back-to-back champions. Okay, back-to-back champions. But these teams are a lot different. That first championship they got Rudy Tomjanovich coming in as the new coach. and he's taken them to the finals, and they're winning their first NBA championship in decades.
Yep.
And then the follow-up year, they come in and they win an NBA championship. They brought in Clyde Drexler.
Clyde the Glide.
Yeah.
And Clyde is considered a Hall of Famer.
And that was a
obviously.
huge move.
Right.
Huge.
And he is that, but he's playing against the Orlando Magic with a Penny Hardaway, Shaquille O'Neal, and they sweep those bad boys in the finals. And so, like,
God, I forgot about that.
It didn't just look like a team that stole one. It didn't look like a team that, slipped upon this, but it looked more like a team that, was about to make a run for a long time, which obviously this was their last one. But, that was a really solid team and a different looking team both years, but great coach, great team.
Yeah.
Olajuwon looked like he just was stamping Hall of Fame all over himself.
My whole band argument is based on Olajuwon on that team. Do you want me to
That's
go
a
first?
dream
Yeah, go for it. Go for
So
it.
listen, for me, it was and look, I wasn't around for all of it, but Olajuwon was, look, you're talking about young Shaq, in my opinion, the most dominant center that's ever played the game, Shaquille O'Neal.
Absolutely.
Young Shaq, dominant.
What are you,
Hakeem,
11?
Yeah.
God.
Okay, thank you, Joe. But Hakeem, huge. But Hakeem had some of the best footwork of any big man
dream
that's
shake.
ever played.
Yeah.
Okay? I thought he was a supernova. I thought 2 years, boom, hit. I go Queen here.
Ooh.
I go Queen. And if you want to say Freddie Mercury, Hakeem, that's where I'm
man.
going with. You like it, don't you?
Oh, man, I like that a lot. That's a hot take for me. You know who I went with?
Who?
I went with the Kinks. And here's my reasoning.
I like
this
it.
one. This one might throw some people off, but I'm going to tell you why. If you have to list your most underrated bands of all time, you got to put the Kinks at the very top. And I'm going to tell you this. I put the Dream up there, and I put these Rockets teams up there because I thought they were so good. They were so fundamentally sound.
Don't talk about them. We don't talk about them either.
No one gives them the respect that I feel like they deserve. You got Akeem Olajuwon, you got Clyde Drexler, you got Sam Cassell, you got Big Shot Bob.
Yep.
That's where he developed his
That's right.
name, was
That's
with
right.
the Houston Rockets. To me, I just feel like they didn't get the respect they deserve, so I'm going with the Kings.
And it's all because McCartney and Lennon wanted to play baseball.
I love it.
in Birmingham. Not England.
So let's keep going. Let's talk about the early 2000s Lakers.
Okay,
What do you got?
I'm going to hit you with this first. This may sound boring, but I'm going to hit you with a little roster because when I read this roster, I'm just going to hit the highlights of it. But, I'm thinking from coaches to get so many guys that have already won a championship. They're literally a dream team of, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, like guys that have been there,
Yeah,
and so
so
you got Shaq and Kobe obviously on this squad, but you've got Derek Fisher, who's he establishes himself there, so I guess you could take him off the list. But you got Rick Fox, you got AC Green, Ron Harper,
You and the curls.
He's so handsome.
He is a beautiful dude.
He's a
you got
handsome
Ron
man.
Harper, who's already won the championship with the Bulls.
Yep.
Big Shot Rob
Big Shot
again.
Rob.
Now,
Big Shot Rob.
he's come over from Houston. He's here. We got Tyronn Lue, who ends up coaching LeBron. You got Glenn Rice, who's had an epic career of shooting, and then John Sally, who's already won championships with Detroit. So like, there's no question marks of like attitude and whatnot on this team. And immediately when everyone hears that Shaq's going to the Lakers, you're like, man, Shaq and Kobe, right?
Yeah.
So you got the superstar heads on it, and no one to F it up below them, in my opinion.
Sure.
I love it. Yeah.
All right, so I gotta jump right in. You know where I went with?
Who?
I went with Snoop-a-Loop.
Really?
And here's the reason.
Do tell.
What team in the history of the league was cooler than
pretty
this
cool.
team?
It's pretty cool.
Kobe and Shaq had so much drip.
And it was back
Did you catch
prime
that?
time.
Drip. I'm
It was
talking like a
drip.
15-year-old.
No, I get it.
It's drip.
Was that rhetorical?
And it was
I
so
caught that.
freaking good.
I caught that.
And those guys, I mean, they were just so cool. Everything they did seemed easy.
Yeah.
And you know why? It's because they were the two best players in the world.
They were.
Combined together. I went with Snoop.
I like that. This is painful for me. This is a painful pick for me because, one, as Ben knows and we've argued about for years, I'm not a Kobe fan. I've never been a Kobe fan. I did like watching this team, and when I really thought about the essence of this team, I completely agree with Joe. They had a deep bench, real deep bench. Comes down to two people. Comes down to Shaq and Kobe.
Of course.
Comes down to two people who are immensely talented at what they do. Comes down to two people that are close. Comes down to two people that ultimately hate each other.
Oh, I knew you were going to go there.
It's fucking Oasis.
Oh, my God.
It's Liam and Noel.
It's Liam and Noel.
It's Liam and Noel. And they had an
Yes.
amazing and an incredible amount of success very quickly. They should have won 10 titles. They didn't win 10 titles because they can't stand each other.
Damn, I got to tell you, that's really good.
Because the
That's
alchemy
real
was
good.
off.
That's
the
a hot
alchemy
take.
was too off. They could not make it work.
I love it.
But for the time it did work, it was beautiful. You got Shaq hammering home dunks, the most dominant player, writing songs better than anybody in the 90s. Okay?
I love it.
Kobe, Liam. I don't even have to go any further than that, okay? It's Oasis.
I got to tell you, I thought you were going to go with NSYNC there, but that's pretty good. Oasis
works.
is pretty solid.
It works. All right, let's go to the 2000 Spurs because this is an interesting team, and I'm really interested to
Interesting,
hear
yeah.
where we go with this. Joe, what do you got?
Yeah, what's fun for the Spurs is that they've been a perennial like top playoff team. You know, they're solid. They got David Robinson there for years. He's established himself. You know,
The Admiral.
You'll see this when you watch that Dennis Rodman 30 for 30. I've been telling you about how he was supposed to be the X factor, but wasn't because David Robinson's the nice guy. You know, he's
So nice.
yeah, he's so nice.
Just a straight up good guy.
But you know, you bring in Tim Duncan. He seems to be a good
Another nice guy.
off the backboard
The
guy.
Edge Pro Jail commercial with those two. Tremendous. I still quote it.
But the kicker is you've maybe got the best coach in the NBA coaching a squad that's got two of the
After
best.
this summer, do we? I'm kidding. Keep
Yeah,
going.
thank you. 2 7-footers that are two of the best centers in the game
Yep.
on the same team.
Yep.
You've got solid guard play, you know, and so really with the Spurs are the team that no one wants to root for. There's nothing sexy about them.
Nothing sexy.
Their best players are guys that are centers, and you know, I mean,
It's a fundamentally sound team.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
Let's take a bank shot from 12 feet and win a championship.
Exactly.
So,
Absolutely.
and it was good enough to win, obviously.
So, and I completely agree. And that's, Joe, we are 100% on the same
Simpatico.
page so far.
Well, that's because I don't miss stuff. So if you're not missing, we're not
because
missing.
we're talking for this debate, we're talking about essence. That's what we're talking about. And the essence of the Spurs is that they're boring. Okay? They're incredibly talented, but they're boring. Okay? So there's one band that I think of immediately, and I got to, and Marsh, I think you're going to appreciate this
Oh,
because
this is
I'm
gonna be good.
clearly
You watch your
dominating the
step.
contest.
This
so
is
far.
gonna be good.
Okay. The Eagles.
Oh,
Incredibly talented.
What a hot take.
Incredibly talented. Individual stars, right? But could be accused of, and this is Don Henley's words, loitering on stage. You're not going to watch a very fun show, okay? And then...
so you don't like 12-part harmony?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. I don't
All
like
right.
Seven Bridges Road at an NBA playoff game. But what I'm telling you is, think about Kawhi Leonard. We didn't know about it, but we definitely know about him now. You add in Kawhi to that, get another title. Oh, who's that guitarist over there? That individual guitarist who's putting that on? Is that Joe frickin' Walsh?
Sound like Sean Elliott playing in the Backstreet
You
Boys.
could do that too, but Joe Walsh coming in, adding in another title, a guy
Yeah.
who could do it on his own. We've seen he can do it on his own. He's Joe Walsh up in Toronto. He does whatever he wants. You know I'm winning this, but who you got?
I mean, that's a pretty good one. And our takes are so close, but I went a different direction. I'm going to tell you this. I'm just going to lead it out like this. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Hit after hit.
Okay.
Always commanded respect. Played extremely fundamentally and technically. But holy shit, were they boring. Ladies and gentlemen, Simon and Garfunkel.
I like that one.
There it is. Talk about the sound of silence. That's every damn Spurs game I ever watched
That's
during
Duncan's
that
nickname.
time frame. There it is. I just slammed it home, and I got to tell you, I could go home right now, but there's other teams to talk about.
Yeah, and let's dip through. I want to talk about the big three in Miami. Ooh, the big three in the Heat. What do we got?
Well-
what do you feel, Joe?
Well, first off, it's generational. It's not the first team, in my opinion. That was the Celtics, but it's the first time that we've really seen this as a trend with maybe the best player in the game. In my opinion, it was the best player in the game, LeBron, going to Miami, and also players taking a hit on their contract to play together. They're saying we want to win championships. And I think if I was going to sum this up real quick, is that Miami was phenomenal. They also blew it early. They weren't what we
Sure
thought
did.
they were going to win 3, 4, 5.
this.
You know, all this. I
love it
You know
when
what
you
they
do that
did?
quote.
Yeah,
That's
they
a good
lost
quote.
to the freaking Mavs. Sorry, Marshall. And
Oh, good
my
one,
gosh,
good one.
I felt like I could have been
Changed Dirk's life.
the
It was
piece
a
that
really
put
nice
him
thing.
over. But you know, like for real, like they were phenomenal. They were great. It was good for the NBA as much as everyone hates it, but at the same time, they underwhelmed me.
Yeah.
And they were a phenomenal team, and they won 2 championships.
Well, speaking of underwhelming, do you know who they are? They're Destiny's Child.
Interesting.
That's exactly who they are.
That's interesting.
And I'm going to tell you this. It's really easy to explain. LeBron, let's be real, he's Beyonce.
I was going to say he was Kelly Rowland.
As much as I love D-Wade, he's kind of Kelly Rowland. He kind of is. I'm sorry, in this scenario, he really was. LeBron was the star of the show. Bosch was the one that I can't even remember her name.
I was going to say, yeah. Bosch,
can anyone name her name?
Bosch was,
We're going to need someone that's listening to this to name her name.
I believe
please.
her name is Destiny Child.
Oh, yeah. That's her. Child/Destiny.
All right,
Yep.
so
I think that's 100% the way to go.
that's fair. I can see that. It's a trio. I get it. Actually, I think there may have been 4 at one time, but Bay booted her out of there.
Yeah, that was Udonis Haslem.
Okay. Oh, yeah, exactly. I think
my
here's where I go with it. I'm with Joe. I think about that setting the tone, even though technically it did kind of start with Boston with KG and Pierce. But I think about it setting the tone for something that I don't like. I think about it setting the tone for other teams to copy something that I don't like. And I think it doesn't require much thought or effort. I think it's Maroon 5. I think it's terrible. I can't. I'm sorry,
We just
Joe.
lost Joe.
Yeah,
We lost him.
I can't stand it. I think it's sellout. And I don't think it's good.
Do you guys mind if I give you my essence of Nick real quick?
There's some hot takes going
Move
on here.
quickly.
I'm going to go. I have to throw one in on this. I think it's, and I go a different way. I think it's Velvet Revolver. And the reason I say this is because, I'm a big, and I love this. I'm a big rock guy, and I'm a big 90s rock guy.
Of course.
And I love the self-destructive nature of, and it's terrible how he ended up, but Scott Weiland. And, Stone Temple Pilots, he's a part of that band. And then, somehow that doesn't work out, which is Cleveland to a T.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again, it's Cleveland to a T. And then he gets in with these other guys who are extremely talented.
Yeah.
But the whole time, there is never a moment where you're watching the Heat or you're watching a Velvet Revolver type band that you don't think this is going to self-implode at some point because people can't handle themselves.
Man, that's good.
Anyways, let's move on.
That's good. I like that.
So for me, this is going to be my favorite because I love to bag on these guys.
So good.
The Warriors, the recent Warriors, the folks that were just so stinking good.
Yeah, well, and we all know the Warriors because it's the most recent, but here's my piece on the Warriors is you got to remember that Steph, Draymond, and Clay were drafted by the Warriors.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like
It's amazing.
homegrown.
So you gotta remember it. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's true.
Like, let's say KD never goes there. Like, are we supposed to fault the Warriors that KD went there?
Right.
No. From a Warriors organization, from those 3 guys, they've done nothing different. They've stayed. They're loyal. They're unbelievable. How many championships do they have minus KD? I don't know. But then also in that spin is KD. And not to put any hate on him, he goes there. He wins 2 titles there. So obviously they're the favorites of all time. There's never been a team that has been a better team than the Warriors on top of that with KD. If he doesn't get hurt, they're 4 out of 5, and that's an unbelievable mark.
Exactly.
Unbelievable mark by the Warriors right there. So
Yeah.
I just look at them as like, I mean, for real, I think the homegrown is the piece that you can't miss when you talk about the Warriors. I think that and even their veterans that they bring in are guys that have been there since that first championship and they've held on to Iguodala and so on. So
now he's a Grizzly and he better play or I riot. I'm so mad at Ben for stepping on this. I was so excited to spring out Velvet Revolver here. And
He spoiled
I
it.
didn't think anybody was thinking Velvet Revolver at all because I haven't. But the only reason I was thinking about it is because here's the thing.
It's a super group.
It's a super group. That's
Yeah.
fair. I'm very conflicted on it, right? And so, I was pissed. But I also then, every time that comes out, and I'm like, actually, that's a pretty damn good
It's a
jam,
great
right?
song.
So I didn't, so I hated it, but I also liked it. I didn't know that I would like it.
Yep.
I kind of thought, and maybe even a little bit, the terrible part of me wanted it to fail, and then it kind of didn't. But it also kind of flamed out kind of quickly.
It did.
right?
You're right.
That's a thank you, Ben, for throwing in Velvet earlier. You can tell we're brothers. We're both thinking about Velvet Revolver. Yeah.
You got one?
Yeah, no, I
Please
actually
please
have
do.
2. I got to give you 2,
Oh,
and
go.
I'll make them really quick. So number one, and for the same reasoning that you went with Velvet Revolver, I went with the Traveling Wilburys.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, that's the greatest supergroup of all time.
I love the Traveling Wilburys.
The greatest supergroup of all time. You know why? Because Kevin Durant is Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Steph Curry is Tom Petty.
Okay.
Klay Thompson is George Harrison.
Oh, I like that.
And Draymond Green is Roy Orbison. Set it up right now.
That's amazing.
Listen, they're selling out every show and every basketball arena in the country. But if you know the name of this pod, you know where we're going with this. You know who the Golden State Warriors are. They are fucking Nickelback.
Absolutely.
That's fair.
They are the most annoying
Fun to
team
hate. Yeah.
of all time. You want to hate them because every game looks the same, just like every song sounds the same. Hello, Nickelback. That's the answer.
Do we miss the Warriors without KD? Because here's the thing. Here's my one critique there. If Nickelback, this is really mean.
Sorry, Nickelback.
If Nickelback fell off the face of the earth tomorrow, just the band fell off the earth,
Oh, dear.
I'm not going to miss the music. Am I going to miss the Golden State Warriors being the top dog and having? We don't know who the top dog is next year.
Well, the other piece that you missed too, and I should have spoke to this, is that the Warriors changed the game of basketball. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson changed the game of basketball. You're
That
talking
is
about
true.
literally, if we want to argue about the greatest shooter of all time, those two guys are both in the argument.
Yeah.
Literally.
They're both in there.
Klay's scoring 40 points a game with 4 dribbles. 4 dribbles in a single game, and he scored over 40
And was it
in a
like
game.
37 points in a quarter?
Yeah, I mean,
like,
you're talking about two
stupid.
phenomenal guys that changed the game. So, that's a different
I think
look.
we'd be silly to say, too, that, look, Nickelback clearly changed the game of basketball as well.
It's amazing. Without Walmart, there is no Nickelback, and without bandwagon fans,
not
there
be.
is no worry. Anyways, moving forward, let's talk about the Raptors. Let's talk about the recent Raptors, the recent champions.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
I
love this.
This is such an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, my favorite thing about the Raptors in 2019 is two people, Dwayne Casey and DeMar DeRozan. Literally, Dwayne Casey.
the two guys that are not there.
Exactly. Dwayne Casey literally won Coach of the Year.
Coach of the Year. Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan is the face of the franchise and literally
Isn't that so crazy?
beloved. And not only is he beloved, he literally, I honest to God feel like he's torn apart when he gets traded out of here.
Oh, yeah.
And
Got
so,
it.
like, as a neutral fan to this, because I have no dog in the fight, I feel bad about both. I'm like, Dwayne's out.
Yeah.
DeMar's gone.
Yeah.
And then here they come, you know? And so you have a team out of nowhere. You've got Leonard that,
Supernova.
Supernova.
One of the best playoff performances we've ever seen.
Unbelievable.
He's the guy that every time that he wins something up until this year, I'm like, well, that was a great playoff performance.
Joe frickin' Walsh, man.
Wow, he really showed up there in the finals. Does he play for the boring Spurs?
Yeah.
And now we're like,
Oh, he's a real
damn,
deal.
this guy is solid.
He's
So
a real deal.
he is a supernova. The team in and of itself, I do not think it was a fluke. I think if he's still there, they've got a chance to win it again. He's not.
So,
But-
do they have a chance to win it again this year?
Oh, no.
That is why
There
my
it is.
pick
Well, what do you got?
is Jexy's Midnight Runner. Because it's a one-hit wonder, baby.
Oh, my gosh.
2018, 2019. Come on, Eileen. That's your Toronto Raptors, and we never heard from them again.
Dude, how are we so much on the same page? But I'm going to one-up you. You ready for this?
Hit me with it.
It's a three-way dance. What do Chumbawamba, Aha, and Carly Rae Jepsen all have in common?
They're all in their mid-30s.
A couple things, actually. They're Canadian.
Yep.
And they're
Oh,
a
that's-
one-hit wonder.
Damn it, that's really
Did I
good.
just own
No,
you right
that's really,
there?
really good.
Canadian one-hit
also-
wonders. Never going to see them again.
I feel like when Kawhi walks into Toronto, he says, "Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy.
There it is.
But here's my number.
But don't call me because I'm leaving.
I'm leaving anyway." So,
I'm guessing he doesn't say "take on me."
right,
for sure.
It was hard to tell where I was going with that. So, what are some other great teams that deserve band comparisons? What do you think about this? It's kind of an interesting concept, but we want to hear what you think. Tell us at upshotpodcast.com, and remember that you can grab notes and links from the show there too. Also, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and make sure to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week with another episode. We hope you're having fun. Let us know what you think. It's great hanging with you as always. We'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Upshot NBA podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to click the subscribe button so you can get a new Upshot episode every week. And make sure to leave us a review on your podcast app as soon as you're done listening.